name is Dominique Avery, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this show we are calling Can We Talk? An opportunity to spend half an hour having a wide-ranging conversation with just one guest. Today, my guest is someone you know really well. She is a lawyer and a journalist by training and a municipal leader by accident. Perhaps you've guessed by now, it's Mary Glassman. Welcome, Mary.
Thanks, Dominique. Always good to be here and always good to talk to you.
So nice to have you back. It's
Thank
been
you.
several months now.
It has.
And you have a new job. Tell
I
us a little bit
do.
about the job.
I do. So it's great to be here with you. I am doing something I always loved, and that is trying to help towns and schools save money so they can support education. I've always been a very strong believer in quality education, I just was thrilled that the Capital Region Education Council approached me. They've actually tried to recruit me for many years, and I'm running their new office for regional efficiencies. So my job is to help towns and schools work together and save money and use those resources and efficiencies to support education.
So you mentioned that you just came from the Capitol.
I did.
So what were you doing there?
So the purpose of our office is to try to get people to think differently, try to think creatively, and try to find ways that we could provide better services for kids in a different way or for less costs. And the Municipal Opportunities for Regional Efficiencies Committee, headed by the Speaker of the House, Brendan Sharkey, has put together a subcommittee called Regional Efficiencies, and I'm representing CREC with my years of municipal experience. And I'm thrilled to be part of it, and we're having a lot of important conversations about service delivery and performance measurements and saving money. And it's really exciting, and I think we are very poised with, right now, at this moment in time, with the leadership of the Speaker, with the crisis of the Connecticut economy, with towns and cities looking for ways to save money. And we're poised to make some changes in how we deliver services. So it's a really exciting time to be part of a very important conversation.
It'll be interesting. Mary, a lot of people don't know that you have considerable experience at the Capitol. And I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about that. I met you first there when you were working for Speaker of the House, Moira Lyons,
Yes.
and then you were moved over to the Senate. So how you left Simsbury, and then how did that come about that you went to work for Moira Lyons? And what did you know about the stack?
We'll take a trip down memory lane
Yeah,
together.
right.
I always thought that I would be a newspaper reporter my entire life. So the fact that I'm sitting here having traveled so many different paths is a little bit surprising to me, as well as probably you. But when I grew up in New Britain, I believed in open government. At the time that I grew up in New Britain, there was a lot of changes in municipal government, and there was actually a jobs fixing scandal in the city. And I happened to graduate from UConn with a degree in journalism and went back to New Britain, where I grew up, and I was covering a lot of those stories and covered the municipal corruption trial, and felt very passionate about open government and good government and public service. I went to law school at night. I worked for the Herald during the day, went to law school at night, and I always thought that I would end up working for the Boston Globe. That was my goal, and I had some friends there. And along the way, I met a young man named Andy Glassman, and we got married, and we both decided to practice law. So I started practicing. We were looking to start our family. We had 2 kids. We had 1 kid on the way, and wanted to buy a house, and found Simsbury to be a great community to raise a family. So we moved to Simsbury, got active as most people did when they had small children in local government, and just tried to help get involved. One of the issues at the time, there was a gadfly named Joan Coe. Maybe you've heard of her. Joan's
She's
still advocating. Here. And Joan was having a difficult time with the town of Simsbury because she really wanted to campaign at the dump. That was the place to go.
Oh, yeah,
Back then, people
right.
may not have remembered that.
Right.
And Simsbury made it, the first selectman at the time made it illegal for people to campaign at the dump. And we had a candidate who was running against the incumbent, and about 6 weeks before the election, our candidate dropped out. And I was out of the room at the time. I wasn't at a meeting, and My husband and a friend, Mike Lanza, who grew up in Simsbury, told me that they had found a candidate, and I was really excited, and I said, who? And they said, me. So that was my entry into politics. I didn't think I would win. The only issue I ran on was that I was a reporter and an attorney, and I felt very strongly that government should be open, and it was wrong to stop people from campaigning and First Amendment and sharing their thoughts, even if you don't agree with them. And to my surprise, I was elected Simsbury's first selectman and first Democrat in nearly 40 years, and knew very little bit about running a town, but used some of my newspaper experience and did a lot of researching, did a lot of talking to folks.
So at the meeting about you, Joe Townsley told a story that you went up to his office and opened the door and said, what do I do now? Is that true?
That's true. That's true. I had no preparation for running the town, and it's been a wonderful experience. I've met wonderful people along the way. I've worked on some great projects with wonderful people, buying open space at the time when I was elected. None of our farms were preserved, and we worried about how Simsbury would look once Tall Meadow Farm was developed into housing, or Rosedale Farm, or George Hall Farm. You know, there wasn't even a program that existed. So the fact that, you know, we all learned along the way and worked together with the Land Trust and with the state of Connecticut, and here we are. You know, not only do we have all of our farms preserved nearly 20 years later, 25 years later, but we have amazing bike paths. We have a steward program. It's just, it's been an amazing experience.
The town really has changed enormously since, because I moved here just about the time you were elected the year before.
Okay.
And it really has changed.
It has changed.
A lot, yeah.
I did leave public office the first time because my children were getting older, and as you know, public service is a very difficult, often challenging profession and career. And as my children were getting older, I felt that I couldn't dedicate the time to public service, and I went back to practicing law and did work up at the Capitol, both in the House and in the Senate. Again, a political corruption scandal. The governor of the state of Connecticut resigned, and I was moved into the lieutenant governor's office as chief of staff. So I never planned to work in the executive branch, but that was a really an amazing experience as well, having worked as a staffer in the legislature and then over at the lieutenant governor.
Now it's interesting. I don't know Kevin Sullivan well, but I met him at some affair one time and chatted a little bit about you, and he wanted you to run very much for state senate.
Yes.
Yeah. Was that something that you considered?
You know, I never really considered running for office again. You know, after I left office the first time, I love public policy. I love making a difference, and you certainly can make a difference as a public official, no question. But you also can make a difference, you know, doing research and public policy and working for municipal officials and state officials in bringing good research and good data and good public policy forward. And so I really found that to be a wonderful experience. What made me run again was that you really can't make that difference as you can if the people put you in that office. And I did try to run for lieutenant governor twice. I felt that the state of Connecticut could be a better place for young people to live, and we could have better public policies, regional cooperation, for example. That I felt strongly that should come from the governor, lieutenant governor, and felt that was the way we should go. And so I did spend a lot of time and a lot of energy trying to get those policies brought forward. And while I didn't win either time, I did feel, and I do feel, that the conversation was elevated because it became part of a public debate and part of a conversation. And once my children were grown, and there was an opportunity to come back to Simsbury and run again, to finish some of the things that I had started, continue the open space conversation, to continue the regional collaboration conversation. And so I did run again, and I was very blessed that the people of Simsbury gave me a second chance to come back.
Now, I'm so curious. We sort of blew right past the sort of your very beginnings. What gave you the confidence, the chutzpah, the energy as a young woman, as a growing up a high school student, to have that kind of vision about your future? What was that? I'm a generation a little bit older than you. It never occurred to me until I was much older to do anything like that, to play a role. And you, I mean, you dove right in there, and that's quite unusual for a young woman.
Well, it's I guess it's the circumstances of the way we grew up. I have 3 brothers. My mom came from a very Orthodox Jewish background, and she married a young Italian man who came from a very strong Italian Catholic heritage. So it was a very strong family, supportive, pro-education kind of a family. And when I was 4 and my brothers were 2, 7, and 8, my dad died very suddenly. He had a heart attack and died. And we were left very, very poor. My mom, did not work, and she felt strongly about staying home with the kids. And we never thought that we would go to college. There was no money to go to college. And so from a very young age, we were taught that you have to have education. That's very important, and you have to take care of yourself, and you have to learn how to make a difference. And for us, all 4 of us, we learned very quickly that if anything were to happen in our lives, we had to make it happen. And I've always felt very strongly about education, and I'm sitting here today because I had an education. I had a chance to go to University of Connecticut. It was very affordable at the time. I think it should be more affordable than it is today, because if you're going to make a change in a generation, that's the way to make it. And going to law school at UConn at night, again, working during the day, it was very affordable for me to go to law school at night. I think I paid $500 a semester to get a law school education. It's not possible. It's not possible today for someone to pay for their own education, and all the way from undergraduate to law school. And I feel bad about that because I think that's really, we owe that to all children. And I think we owe that as a society. I think that it's our responsibility to make sure that children learn and they can contribute to their life and to our lives. And I think society pays a heavy price when we don't provide that opportunity, whether it be in substance abuse programs, whether it be dropout programs, whether it be incarceration programs. I always felt that you could send a kid to college a lot cheaper than you could send a kid to a prison.
Right.
And so as a society, I think we have to ask those important questions. And so I think that's what gave me that chutzpah, that rough and tumble. We just, we knew we had to do it ourselves. And my mom, she'll be 87 this year. She's very proud of what we've accomplished. I have a brother who's a retired CFO of Otis Elevator, a brother who's a doctor in gynecologist, and a brother who's a professional photographer at the Current. So we all managed to find our way, and I think taught me a lot about what doors education will open, certainly for me, but to any child, if given an opportunity.
But you had a lot of self-confidence.
Well, you had no choice.
Yeah.
You either, made it happen or it wasn't going to happen. So I think, I think that you get resilient.
But you might have also benefited a little bit because I grew up before the women's movement, and you were growing up when the women's movement was coming along, so maybe that helped.
I don't think it. I thought I was a guy. I think in that approach, I had 3 brothers.
That's what I'm getting at, right?
And so
okay.
We all went to school, and we all were learning math. So I learned math, and we all were going to go to college. I never really thought I couldn't do anything that they were doing. So I think that as women, we probably don't help other women. Now that I've had experience in public service, I think that certainly there are not a lot of women in public service. There's fewer women today that hold local municipal office. There has been. So I think that we still have a long way to go in making women feel they can do anything they want. And I think as women, we aren't really helpful to other women.
So I saw somewhere that you moderated a panel with other women leaders, and was that something that you talked about at that panel? I mean, the experience. Did you feel any difference when you were as a municipal leader or at the state capitol, or were you respected the same way a man would be?
Yeah, I felt that internally, I think women put barriers in place that don't exist for men. For example, fundraising. You know, the reason I think you don't see a lot of women running for statewide office or for Congress. We have some congressional women, but I think women say, "Can I raise that amount of money? Can I? I've never had experience in public office. Can I do that?" I don't think men ask those same questions. So. I think the panel that I moderated included Kathy Austin, who's a state senator and first selectman of Prague, the councilwoman from Mansfield, another woman who is a newly elected mayor of Norwich. They also did find that they did have a harder time getting into public service because they didn't have the confidence that they could do it. So we need to change that. We need good people to run for office, period. Whether it's young men, young women, we need to find good people to run. It's important.
Well, I think you had, just observing you over the years, because I saw you when you were first elected, you looked like a child yourself. And you were pregnant at the time, which was just amazing that you did all of that. But you had a certain toughness, surface toughness that you don't see in a lot of women. And you had, at the same time, a gentleness and sort of a sympathetic ear. So I thought you were an extraordinary candidate. And when you were running, I would talk to people about you because I thought you had a unique group of gifts for a woman.
Well, thank you.
Different than. Now, I think it's hard to be in the public eye. I mean, you look at Hillary Clinton. I mean, I think she has a tough time treading exactly that line between toughness and gentleness. I think it's very hard for women.
It is hard. I think it's important to be an advocate for injustice. You know, I think it's important if you're going to be a public servant that you have to be tough. To stand up and take on issues that you think are unfair or unequal or wrong. But at the same time, you have to be, for me, compassionate enough to listen and to learn and to understand why you're fighting for these things. I never picked a fight to pick a fight. I picked a fight when I had to, or I had to stand my ground because something was wrong. And that served me well. I sleep well every night. I feel that I think people deserve respect. I think if you don't agree, you have to listen to them, and they have a right to come forward. And I always learn something. You know, that's what I love about life. Every day you can learn something, and even if you listen to someone who you may not agree with, or maybe you don't have a lot in common with, if you take the time to listen, you will learn something about yourself or about what's fair or about what's right, and that's always served me well.
So that brings me to another question. Between your first two stints as first selectman in Simsbury, what did you learn in between? Were you better the second time around? What do you think?
I think I was more patient the second time around because I think it came from knowing how to build a consensus. In the beginning, coming into office, not knowing anything, there are a lot of barriers that you can't change. Maybe the staff you have doesn't agree with the direction you want to go. Maybe the law is in your way and you can't do what you want to do. Maybe people say no. But I think as I learned the system a little bit and learned how to listen and learned how to build that consensus and learn how to overcome barriers, it made it a lot more fun, and it made it a lot easier to accomplish things. Try to think of some examples. I think when there was a group of people led by Steve Mitchell who came into my office and said, I think we should be bike friendly. And there's a program, national program, that is bike friendly. Well, maybe when I first came into office, I would have said, oh my goodness, I don't know how to do that. And the second time when they came in, I said, well, okay, let's do it. And you learn how to bring together a group of very passionate people, and Steve and others certainly had the energy to create something. But when the Department of Transportation didn't want to work with you because they didn't have a program for bike friendly, or no other community had gone through the process, and there was no money to do it, it never really was a problem, because you learn how to overcome those barriers. And so that's what made it fun the second time. I thought we accomplished a lot more quicker in a more consensus way, rather than being afraid of change, or letting people's fear of change or not knowing how to work something stop you from accomplishing something really great. And Simsbury is a model for Connecticut. Not only were we the first bike friendly, but once we were joined by other advocates such as Diana Moody and Patty Jacobus and Larry Leonis. We were the first town to do a bike share program, and now we're the first silver town.
Right.
And that comes from, as a public official, being a good listener, being a consensus builder. And I never tried to take credit. I just tried to help other people who had great ideas. And that's always worked.
Now, did that consensus, was that a matter of your age, or was that a matter of working at watching the legislature work and how legislative process works? Or
well, the legislative process doesn't work.
Right.
And I think that I learned a lot about that too, because everybody gets so, at the state capitol, and I can only imagine what it's like in Washington, everyone gets so bogged down with either party politics or the way things have been done, that when you are local and you can reach across the aisle and create new structures and get the public to support you, it works better. So I did learn at the state capitol how not to build consensus, and I didn't want to do that locally.
So just a little piece of gossip, was Kevin Sullivan really disappointed to move to Lieutenant Governor's office?
Yes, desperately disappointed. It was a very sad time for the state of Connecticut. Being up at the Capitol and having a governor who was popular and well-liked and had done some good work. Yukon 2000, Governor Rowland had done amazing initiatives and policy work, and worked very well with the House and the Senate. And I think that Kevin Sullivan at the time felt that he was in a very important public policy role as leader of the Senate. And the lieutenant governor has very little duties. In fact, by constitution, it's part-time. So he desperately didn't want to shift and move over to that role. But I think, as everything in life is, you can make a difference where you're planted, right? So as lieutenant governor, you have a bully pulpit, and he actually put together a mental health task force that made some sweeping changes in delivery of mental health services to children, families, and that was really the first time that mental health was talked about publicly. And people talked about, I have a child who struggles and can't get in to see a doctor, or I have a mother who struggles and can't get help. So
and they're still struggling.
Still
with the same
struggling.
issue.
And without an advocate, without champions, and without a conversation, you really can't make change.
You never did answer my question about state senate. Right.
Did I ever really?
Did you ever really consider that?
I think people have asked, and I did think about whether I could make a difference there, and I felt that I could make a bigger difference locally, and that's where my energies were planted.
So if you look back at Simsbury, so much has changed. Do you have your sort of proudest achievements, or is it just a general?
I think Simsbury has been the leader in a lot of areas, and we are well respected as a community statewide, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we've always been known for good things. We've been known for leading the way in collaboration between schools and towns. We're certainly regarded for the way we support education, for the way we treat children. We have a long way to go as a community statewide and how we serve our special needs children. And I'm hoping that that conversation I can help with in my role as the CREC, which is focused on education. So I've been proud of that. I've been proud that I hope I've given public service a good name and encouraged other people to run and get involved and make a difference, because I do believe in it.
Do you miss it?
Yeah. There are days. I think that the whole way that I resigned from office disappointed me. It disappointed me because I think that Simsbury was, the way that the decision to cut my salary midterm, I think that was a very, we got a lot of very bad publicity as a result of that decision. Whether you agree with the decision or not agree with the decision, that hurt me. The fact that statewide, people would come up to me and say, what were they thinking in Simsbury? Where was the conversation? What's the backstory? That disappointed me. And certainly, I thought that we in this community treat each other more respectfully than that conversation went. But certainly, I lived being first selectman. Not only did I go to the office and work a full day and administer the town's duties and functions, but I don't think I ever missed, a senior citizen lunch or a birthday
Right.
or an
and as you
event
disclosed to
or a
me,
parade.
now you're not quite sure what to do with yourself in
It's
the
a
evenings.
different
right?
schedule,
Yeah.
I mean, I work a lot with the legislature. I work a lot with superintendents and with town officials, and there's no one works on the weekend if you're not in public office, and that's a big change for me. It is a big change for me.
So we'll have to find you some hobbies.
There you go. We'll
Mary,
have to
we've
find
run
some.
out of time.
Wow, fast half hour.
So I'd like to thank everyone here at SCTV, our director and camera people and office staff for all their help in getting the show on the air. Thanks especially to my guest, Mary Glassman, who came back.
Thank you.
It was
My
delighting.
pleasure.
I've missed you. It was so nice to see
Great
you
to see
again.
you.
And finally, thank you for joining us. If you missed any part of the show, you can watch it on our website, simsburytv.org. That's also where you'll find our schedule. I'd love it if you'd like us on Facebook, where you can learn more about us and the shows that we're airing. Have a wonderful day.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.